in Nolan Traore, who we got to see at Hoop Summit. So Traore just had a really good tournament at the U18s for France. He was one of the standouts at the Nike Hoop Summit. So a couple of fun measurements with Traore. If you remember, at Hoop Summit, they measured, like the measurements for the world team came out one day, and then the next day everybody was taller. So the first measurement, Traore was 6'3" in shoes with a 6'6" wingspan, 185 pounds. The next day he was 6'4.5" in shoes with a 6'6" wingspan, 185 pounds. I'd say he's probably more 6'3" than 6'4.5", but either way, like he's long. I think he's strong, and he's one of these guys who I think is so skilled that, like, if he's 6'3", it's a legitimate 6'3". It's not like he's, like Rob Dillingham being listed at 6'3" last year. So, but man, he's good, huh?
First off, Corey, I want to say I actually think he might be closer to 6'4", because me in shoes, I'm 6'3", and I thought he was definitely like clearly taller than me. So I was actually feeling like, oh, he might be like 6'3.5", 6'4", maybe even a little bit taller. I don't know, but
that would be
I wanted
great.
to say that. Yeah, exactly. Makes him even more interesting. Also, like maybe the hair was a part of it too, but no, he's got a great looking physique. I thought like physique looked great in person. Yeah. The way that he was moving, communicating, carrying himself on the floor, it just screamed like leadership, professionalism. I'm a pro already type of energy was what I got from him all week long when we were watching him in practices, scrimmages, games, whatever. It just an extremely interesting. I got some intel from Coach Marshall Cho, who coached the world team at the Nike Hoop Summit. And he's like, this kid is one of the smartest kids he's ever come across, like ever. An extremely intelligent basketball player who just really studies and knows the game really well. He has like really special instincts. As an offensive player, the way that he reads the defenses, the way that he carries himself, the way that he reads his teammates. VJ Edgecombe, right after the game, when he said he's the best point guard I've ever played with before, which is an incredible statement as well. Just a pick and roll maestro, a guy that can really split a double team, does a really good job of that. Passing instincts, touch, vision, really special stuff with him. I'm in love with the kid. Like and also Corey, I remember there was one day we were watching the world team practice and they went through a shooting drill and he didn't hit all the shots, but it looked good to me. Like it looked really good to me. And I was really intrigued by it. And I don't think he'll ever be like a high volume 3-point shooter, but if he can hit him enough, it's more than enough.
Yeah. It's the like the SGA bar, right? Like he shot 1-3 in college, something like that. Yeah. But it's like the form looks good, right? He shoots them. He's reluctant when he's got a defender on him from 3. Right. But if he can be a little bit more loose with his shooting and a little more confident in shooting contested shots from 3, I think it'll be great. He's, I think, a good enough shooter that he's going to be able to hit off-ball shots, and that'll allow him to play next to other guys who need the ball in their hands, and that's like important. But he is so good with the ball in his hands that ultimately, if you're drafting him, you want him to lead your team. You mentioned VJ Edgecombe, best point guard ever. Like he played with some damn good point guards at Lehigh, VJ Edgecombe. So he's got everything you want out of a point guard. Like he can make every play. Super quick processor, right? But he's creative too. He's not just making simple passes. He's making creative passes. I mean, I'm sure some of you have seen the like loose ball, throw the ball over my head, and get it right to my guy for the finish, like crazy highlight from the FIBA tournament. But, he can do like all of the get into the paint because he's a walking paint touch. Yes. Like if you watch the FIBA tournament, he absolutely spammed like these drop offs because he was just getting into the paint at will and just dropping off to his bigs in the dunker spot. But he can also like get into the paint, driving kick. He can run a ball screen and like make all of the pick and roll passes, whether it's to the roll man or like painting the corners, right? Like shifting the D. There are definitely, you could tell he's young and he's still learning, because there are definitely times where I thought, like, especially in that FIBA tournament, he was like a little lazy with some of his passes, especially like the cross court stuff, and like that'll clean up over time. But like he is just so capable of making all of those plays that he's going to be a problem as a playmaker. But like what makes his playmaking so good is that like he can score. Yeah. Like you talk about his 3-point shooting, but he can really pull up in the mid range, and he's like creative. He's got a bag. He can like his step back. He actually creates like a ton of space off his step back, not just like a little bit of space. Some guys, like, you'll watch them step back and it's like they don't create enough space, so the defender can contest and they have to move off the ball, and they just killed their dribble because they thought they were going to, take a shot and they couldn't. He really creates a lot of space off his step backs. He's got like the floaters. He's really long, and he's bursty in short spaces. And he plays with that pace, so like he'll get to like the little elbow area and then boom, explode. He's to the hoop. He can go high off the glass. He can do scoop shots. He's not like super above the rim, but he can definitely like, he's not Khan, like he'll dunk, and he'll go up with 2 hands, 1 hand. He can finish through contact. You mentioned really good at splitting double teams. Just so quick in that regard. He rocks, man. He really does. Like, I mean, he can deal with guys on his hips. He'll put guys in jail. He's a legit guy. He's legit, man. Like, he's gonna have teams. That's why this draft is so fun, because it's not just Cooper at the top. Like, Nolan's like a legit guy. Like, I mean, Nolan would have. I think he would have gone 1 in this draft.
Yes,
in this past draft, right? Yes. Like, he's one of those guys that you're going to look at and be like, oh, he would have gone first in the 2024 draft. So, really good.
Just really good. And Corey, just like to your point about like his in between, mid range, at the hoop, at the rim stuff, like there's a lot of savviness to his game, which goes back to what I talked about with him, right? There's a maturity to his game. He's reading angles. He's got great touch on those floaters. He can throw it up high off the glass. He's just a really, really smart player that clearly, as we've seen through the testimony of other players, just a guy that you want to play with. He knows how to set his guys up. He knows how to he knows how to pick his spots when he should go and get a bucket for himself, because I think in my mind, he's doing that because he knows the next possession he's going to get a shot for his buddy or for his teammate. Like, there really is a beautiful selfless aspect of his game, and I think like I read a scouting report somewhere. I don't remember what it was, and I don't mean to pretend like I don't know, because I don't want to give them hate, but I actually don't remember. But they were saying how he's like more of a score first guy, but I was like, I don't know if that's true. Like, I really think like his spirit is he likes to share the ball and he likes to be a team player, and so
I think he takes what the defense gives him.
Yeah, exactly. So I like his game a lot, man. And I think just overall, like I loved his frame in person too. I don't remember if I said that already, but
broad shoulders, like
shoulders. He was cut up. It didn't seem like he was ever shying from contact when we were watching him play. So yeah, man, just a really fun guy. And I think, like you said, Corey, he probably would have went first in this draft, and in the last draft, and in this draft, he might go. Who knows? Like, I expect him to go really high, but would it shock you if he went 7th? Like, it's possible just because of how strong this class is. I hope he goes higher. Like, I'm actually.
I could see him going like 2nd.
Yeah, exactly. I still love Ace Bailey. I want to throw that out there, and I know a lot of people, not you, Corey. I've seen other people, say different things. I still love Ace Bailey, but I think it's very realistic that he could go 2 in this class. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting watching his season versus Dylan Harper's, because I feel like there's some like compare and contrast, but a lot of similarities in like the role in which that Nolan and him will play. So I think that'll be.
I think they're similar sizes too, Corey.
That would be great. Dylan's big.
Exactly.
Dylan's a big dude.
But I thought Dylan was more broad than he was tall, if that makes sense. Like, I know he's listed at what? 6'5"?
6'6".
6'6"?
Yeah.
But he didn't feel 6'6" to me. Or maybe he did, but I don't know. I don't know what it is, but he didn't seem that much taller than Nolan. I don't know. We'll see. I thought they were similar in terms of from what I saw, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to eyeball this stuff.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think that Nolan is like, he's good when he's like, I don't know, locked in. When I say that, I don't. It mean like, I think the first thought is like, well, I guess he's not locked in a lot, and that's like not the case. I think he's pretty focused on the defensive side, but he's not always like being super aggressive on the ball, I guess is what I mean to say. Like when you watched Miles McBride or Davion Mitchell, right? Like these guys are like super aggressive on ball defenders. And like Nolan is sometimes, but I don't know whether it's just like he's picking his spots, conserving his energy or what. When he is like super aggressive on the ball, because he's long and I think he's got a pretty good frame, like he could be disruptive in that regard. He moves well laterally, right? Like, so I think his offense is unquestionably going to be good enough that like it's not going to be like super concerning whether or not his defense is something that you talk about, in the first paragraph of his scout. But I think that like his baseline is just like good defender, like, and if he's really 6'4.5", like, he'll probably be able to guard up a little bit more. But he's disruptive, I think, in the passing lanes with his length. Like he's always got his hands up. He's sound positionally, but he's not like super aggressive. Like if he's the low man, like rotating over, he's not going to be Derek White, like getting vertical and trying to block a shot at the rim, but like he'll be in the spot. I don't know how intimidating that'll be for some people, but he'll be there. So I think he's like above average ultimately.
Yeah. No, I agree. First off, Corey, I love that you mentioned Deuce McBride, just because it was hilarious watching Nick's Twitter try to trade him for every center in the league on Twitter this summer. Clint Capella, Walker Kessler, all the names. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Nolan is going to be a really solid defender. There are even flashes of some defensive playmaking with him getting into passing lanes, him, being really, good with his hands and stuff. So I think there's reason to be interested, but I don't think, and I think that's the point that you're making, don't think it's going to be his calling card, right? We're not going to write him down as like, oh, defensive guard, wing, whatever. It's his offense, it's his playmaking. That stuff's going to really shine. And if he's got some defense to him, even better. So,
yeah. Because the offense is, it's got a chance to be, I don't know if I want to say special, but like really, really good. He's got a chance to be a really, really good offensive player with his combination of like playmaking and scoring, his seamless ability to fit into different lineups and contexts. Like he's got a lot of like really high level experience at this point. Like he's going to come in as like a really interesting guy that teams are really going to want and, potentially run the show. And I think one of the things, we might have mentioned it, but like even watching some of these clips and the highlights that we're playing, like, again, like his burst is really underrated. Like he's got elite burst.
Yeah.
Like, because he's got that big, strong frame. He's so slippery and smooth. Like, were there any guys you thought that he kind of plays like?
Corey, at times he looked like smaller Lonzo Ball to me. I don't know if it's his body. Not one for. I'm not talking about his game per se. Just like the way he looked aesthetically. At times he looked like a shorter Lonzo Ball, but that's all my head went to be honest.
Because I think he plays like a shorter Cade, but like maybe a better ball handler than Cade.
There it is. Yeah.
He's like more point. Like Cade is more. I mean, God, that Pistons team. At least they got him some pros. But
my heart breaks for him every day.
Yeah, like so. Hope maybe his playmaking will pop a little bit more this year. But yeah, like a more like playmaking tilted Cade Cunningham Nolan kind of reminds me of. And like if the scoring comes around a little bit more, like with the wiry strength and the mid range and the kind of like tight spaces, maybe some SGA in there. Not to say that he's going to be as good at as either one of these guys.
Yeah.
You know, but like just stylistically, like I see a little bit of both of those guys in him. And you know, at this point in the season, we're gonna be optimistic with our comps.
Yeah.
You know, this is the time for it. So yeah, really fun player. And he was definitely one of the guys on that world team from the Hoop Summit that we get to see that popped no matter, you know, you were playing with him, against him, you were coaching him, right? Like scouting him, he popped for everybody. And, you know, that's not always meaningful because there were a lot of guys who didn't have great Hoop Summits last year who ended up having really great seasons, but sometimes it's very meaningful. So